What we've got ourselves here is a failure to communicate. Anyone know that line from a great film called Cool Hand Luke? And I'm just stealing that. Paul Newman, classic film, classic actor, probably 50 years old or something like that, but beautiful film. Definitely recommend it to you guys out there. And I'm stealing that line from that film. It's not actually Paul Newman's line, it's the sheriff's line. And he says, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And that failure to communicate is from Nike and Air Force One to the rest of the world. Because what I'm seeing is that this shoe right here today, it's called the Nike Air Force One Retro Summer, and it's for women's. I'm only seeing it on Japanese language websites. And if you're new to the channel, you're thinking, why on earth would that guy know about Japanese language websites? And I know that because on earth, I'm in Japan, and I have been for about 22 years, so churning out content for you guys on a daily basis, every single day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, from Tokyo, Japan. Have done that for about 3 years of the 22 that I've lived out here, and I'm seeing these guys on the Japanese websites, even on the Japanese sneakers app for an August the 9th drop date, but I haven't seen them anywhere else. Now, I'm shooting this video on July the 31st, on Saturday, the middle of the Olympics, the middle Saturday of the Olympics, and it'll probably go up to YouTube on, the 1st or the 2nd. You guys will be watching it 2nd, 3rd or 4th or something like that. And by the time it's come around to you guys, maybe more information has come out. Maybe there's a bigger general release. But right now, from where I'm sitting and where I'm looking, this guy looks like a Japanese exclusive shoe, and there are some details on it that are very, very, very Japan. Sometimes it can be quite difficult to tell the difference between a Japanese and a Chinese shoe because they share many similar letters, and Japanese, the language, grew out of the Chinese language and brought some of the characters with it, but not all. But on this shoe, there's two monster Japanese characters. I'm pretty sure they're just Japanese. They may be also Chinese, but I'm feeling this guy is just a Japanese shoe. Interestingly though, the reason I got into this shoe was because I thought it was a Team USA shoe for the Olympics. And what I'm talking about is that there's two panels, especially around the toe box and around the heel, where you see these it's blue and red panels, but they're punctuated with these little white dots. So you've got red, white and blue. And from afar, they kind of looked like stars to me. So I thought, oh, that's probably a Team USA shoe. The Olympics is going on right now, and I'm in Japan, in Tokyo, where the Olympics are. Man, that's a good shoe to get into. Zoom in close. Those dots are not stars. That's not red, white and blue for the stars and stripes. It's covered in little hits of Japanese summer stories, and it's that I'm going to bring to you guys today. We'll go through the shoe like little by little, cover all those little bits on there into the terms of the design, the Japanese hits on there, and tell you why I think this might just be a Japanese exclusive, and perhaps maybe in Tokyo, Japan, I might be in that rare position of being able to get my hands on something that people out there are not so easily getting their hands on, which is fantastic, because usually it's the other way around, especially if you've got big feet like me. It's pretty hard to get sneakers in Japan when they release and stuff like that. So it'd be great if a great big shoe comes along and I've got first dibs on it before you guys out there. No offense. But like I said, anyway, let's get into this and have a look at the shoe and go through it bit by bit. And I'll go start with the Japanese side of things. I said about the character, the Japanese character, and it comes into play on two particular places on the shoe. And I'm fairly sure it's not a Chinese character. And what we're talking about is this right here. That will be a shot of the heels, and what you'll be able to see is where you normally would have Air Force One and Nike branding on the back. Instead of that, you've got a huge circular kanji. Kanji is the word for Japanese letter, and in the case of this one here, the kanji says Matsuri. And if you want to know some Japanese words, I'll say it again, Matsuri. And what Matsuri means is festival, and summer in Japan means festivals wall to wall, unless there's a pandemic going on. Because they're just all shut down. One of the biggest festivals that happens throughout the whole country are fireworks festivals. They'll put on like a 2-hour firework display, and it's absolutely stunning. An amazing thing to see a Japanese firework display. I totally recommend it. Usually happens at the end of August or the start of September. But again, some of these fireworks displays, I'm not kidding, about 1 million people will go and watch them. They'll line the banks of a river. They'll have barges out in the middle of the river shooting off these crazy fireworks. I mean, I've seen fireworks that they go up and they pop, and it's a circle two eyes and a smiley mouth, the smiley face. It's like, what? How on earth did they manage to make a firework do that? And when they go off, you've got the banks of these rivers lined with hundreds of thousands of people. No exaggeration. They're massive events of firework Matsuris here, the firework festivals, well worth getting a hold of. But more than that, there's other stuff as well. There's a thing called Obon, which is when you pay respect to your relatives, and especially people, your ancestors. Very, very much about looking back into the past of your family and things like that. And the Obon Festival, mid-August, huge. Usually they put up big sort of structures in parks, play music, and people dance around the structures. It's an amazing sort of example of festivals in summer in Japan. So this shoe with that Matsuri kanji on the back, that very much speaks about the summer in Japan. This is my big hint that it's just a Japanese shoe, and it's appearing only on the Japanese websites and not so far on the English-speaking websites. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see if that story develops over the next few days and weeks into a more general release, or fingers crossed for me, a very Japan exclusive release. But like I said, back into these guys, big red kanji, says Matsuri, means festival, and it's layered on top of a green and white sort of border design on the back of that Air Force One branding. And it's very easy to flip that out and go have a look at the insole, because it does exactly the same thing on the insole. That instead of having Nike branding on there, you've got that Matsuri kanji again in red on the inside, and again with the green and white sort of border effect on the insole there. So there's a big Japanese story that's right in your face, but then there's a couple of places that's a big Japanese story that's a little bit more discreet. And the two places I'm talking about is, first, we'll go down to the bottom of the toe and have a look at the panel on the toe there, because that's in pink with white sort of starry designs on, and I think these represent those fireworks I was talking about. These are a very simple way to design the firework, and as you're looking at it behind me here on the green screen, you can see the little dot in the center, and then the sort of they look like petals on a flower, but I think they represent the firework bursting in the night sky. So that's to me, the front end of the shoe is very Japanese in that part. And then back from that, wrapping around the whole lacing system, you see there's a repeating flower effect. I thought it might be a lotus flower, but when I researched the lotus flower design, that nothing like this came out, but I'm very sure this is a very Japanese flower representation. Wraps all the way around the lacing system on there. And then down from that, you go to the midfoot panel that's behind the swooshes, and we'll get to the swooshes in a minute because they're cool. But the midfoot panel on these guys has something going on that I've seen before, and I just cannot remember what it is. Some kind of like, it looks like maybe hay or something, some kind of thread style, very simplified kind of toy. It looks like a sort of head and arms and legs or something like that. And I'm sure it's something cultural and something traditional, but I can't put my finger on what it is. It might be that this is the giveaway that this shoe isn't Japanese. Maybe this is like a Chinese traditional thing, and that kanji that I think is Japanese is actually also pulled from China, and these are a Chinese summer shoe as opposed to a Japanese summer shoe. But I've seen this patterning before somewhere, and I'd love it if somebody out there could give us a comment down below and tell me for sure what it is, because I think it definitely actually means something. But pretty much that's us covered all the fabric on the top end of the shoe except for those swooshes. So let's get into those swooshes and have a look at that beautiful quality. It looks like suede, but what it definitely is a wood effect swoosh. And also if we go up onto the tongues and have a look at those as well, you'll see the same wood effect branding at the top of the tongues. Now I did read somewhere that these are LV8, which is a higher sort of quality Air Force One. So if that's true, these swooshes and the branding at the top of the tongue is going to be absolutely stellar high quality material. Speaking of stellar high quality materials, the last thing to do is to have a look at the bottom quarter of the shoe. By that I mean the outsole and midsole. Outsole first, because it's got a full-on translucent feel about it, and I say feel because what it looks through to is something very similar to its own color. Now if it was like light blue looking through to red, you'd see that translucence very clearly, but what it is kind of a cement feel to that translucent outsole, and what it's looking through to is a midsole in sail with sail branding on there. And I think because those two are very similar to each other, it's very hard to see the translucence that comes in that outsole. But going back to that midsole, it's a detail that we often talk about in terms of Air Force Ones, is whether or not they're going for contrast or complement on the branding on the midsole. In the case of these ones, it's complement, same sail branding color in the air branding towards the heel of the midsole, and then the midsole itself done in that same sail color as well. So for me, it's a really neat finish to the shoe and a great place to wrap this one up. A beautiful, interesting shoe, definitely not something that would fit my closet. I am not a wild, colourful kind of guy when it comes to my fashion at all. Very old, very boring, very staid. So simple colours is what I look for in shoes, but I'm sure a ton of people will be interested in these guys, especially those Air Force One heads out there who may be like looking at this and saying, man, where can I get my hands on a pair of them? I'll tell you where, August the 9th, Sneakers app in Japan. So fingers crossed for that date right there. For now though, time to wrap this one up. Another video in the bag, and like I said, we do this every single day, and we're getting real close to 1,000 consecutive days on YouTube without a single day missed. Last day of August is the day to look out for that. But for now, it's time to wrap this one up. Thank you guys for checking out the content, and I'll just remind you one more time that I do this every single day, and because of that, that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.